Yesterday we talked about inverses and contrapositives. Today we're going to utilize that idea to talk about indirect proof. Indirect proofs are written as paragraph proofs. And these are the 3 steps to an indirect proof. First, we assume the conclusion is not true. That is the first statement of your paragraph proof. You assume that the conclusion is not true. Then you logically reason to reach a contradiction of a known fact. This contradiction can be something from the given, can be a definition, can be a postulate, or a theorem that we have already proven. Then our third step, point out the temporary assumption must be false, and thus the conclusion must be true. So our first example, given OJ is congruent to OK and JE is not congruent to KE, we need to prove that OE does not bisect JOK. So let me move this picture so that I can have a little bit more room. So again, our first step is to state or assume that what we are trying to prove, the conclusion, is not true. So we assume that OE bisects angle JOK. So if OE is an angle bisector, it splits that angle into 2 congruent parts. Therefore, angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. From the given, JO is congruent to OK. Therefore, triangle JOE is congruent to triangle KOE by side angle side. Remember, in a paragraph proof, we don't need to state the obvious things like reflexive. So we have that JO congruent to OK. We have angle 1 congruent to angle 2. Obviously, OE is the common side, so it is congruent to itself. By CPCTC, by congruent parts, or corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, KE is congruent to JE. But this contradicts our given. Remember, our given is things that we know for sure are true. This contradicts the given. The JE does not equal KE. Therefore, our temporary assumption is false. And OE does not bisect angle JOK. So again, we went and we assumed our given, or our assumption, we assumed that the proof, the opposite of the proof, logically reasoned to some sort of contradiction to either the given or a known theorem or definition or postulate. Then you state at the end of the proof that our temporary assumption is false and OE does not bisect angle JOK. Our second example. Prove the diagonals of a trapezoid do not bisect each other. So I have a trapezoid here. Let's call this trapezoid A, B, C, D. So what are we given? We're given trapezoid. Trapezoid A, B, C, D. We're trying to prove that AC and BD do not bisect each other. So again, we look at that proof and we temporarily assume that the opposite of that proof. So temporarily, I think I spelled that wrong. Temporarily assume that AC and BD bisect each other. If the diagonals of a quadrilateral bisect each other, think for a minute, what type of figure are you going to have? The diagonals of a parallelogram bisect each other. Thus, ABCD is a parallelogram. But this contradicts our given. This is going to contradict our given that A, B, C, D is a trapezoid. Thus, our temporary our our temporary our temporary assumption is false, and the diagonals of a trapezoid do not bisect each other. There are your lesson questions from today. Please make sure that you answer the questions by 8 a.m. on the due date.